time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. The No Remorse Association had their little shindig today kick off in Houston. The National Rifle Association, National crazy, don't you think? Just days after a horrible tragedy to have a big gun fetish party, a big gun orgy. Just kind of throwing that out there. And then to have all of the folks show up. Trump showed up, gave his little song, and literally a dance. Dancing on the graves there. Well, they did do the obligatory moment of silence where he read off the names of the 19 murdered children and the 2 teachers. Actually said nice words about teachers. I'm shocked. But I guess we care about babies before they're born and teachers after they're dead. I guess that's the Republican way of doing things. That time in between, not so much. But the creepiest moment listening to Trump read off the names of 21 Hispanic sounding names, reading them poorly and mispronouncing many of them, while some weird creepy bell gets tolled. Just very bizarre. In a room full of people hell-bent on doing nothing to address the problem. No remorse. These are the No Remorse Association folks. There's nothing there. Now, again, this is all performative. It was all about, hey, got to make it look like, we've got to say something. And thoughts and prayers, which they did the thoughts and prayers, all the children are going to heaven and going to be with God, and the evil person's going to burn in hell. Yeah, he said that too. Just crazy. Now, interestingly enough, the only person really with a conscience in this moment, now granted, just this brief moment, the people who actually made the gun. Daniel Defense, the maker of the weapon used in this most latest tragedy, the folks who make this AR-15 style weapon, they pulled out of the NRA convention. Wasn't the right time. They said Daniel Defense is not attending the NRA meeting due to the horrific tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, where one of our products was criminally misused. We believe this week is not the appropriate time to be promoting our products in Texas at the NRA meeting. A sense of understanding that not quite the right time. Reading the room at the temperature of the country, going, now probably not the best time to be pimping the weapon. Probably not. Now, they are the only one that I can tell so far, but I'm going to assume they're worried about lawsuits. So public perception kind of front and center in this. But are you surprised that the NRA went forth with their big gun orgy? No. These are people who don't really care. And look, we're in a moment of outrage. We're in the outrage stage. This is the cycle. They talk about the cycle of grief. This is the cycle of American shootings. So you had this horrible tragedy. This thing happened. There's lots of attention, lots of thoughts and prayers. Oh my goodness! And we're doing that. We saw it today. Trump did literally a dance. Then we're going to talk, we need bipartisanship. In fact, Joe Manchin said that he thinks that there's possibility. I love this. Possibility that there could be 70 or 80 senators that are going to vote for gun reform legislation. 70 or 80. He said he feels different right now. And I'm going, I seem to. Is it 2018? Because I kind of remember this. Is this 2019? Is this 2020? I seem to remember this. It's kind of like deja vu all over again. To steal a Yogi Berra quote, I kind of remember this being. This time it's different. Oh, this time it's different. And yet it's not, because we keep hearing the same kind of responses from our Republican friends. I mean, Ted Cruz is, saying the same stuff. Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, one of the more ridiculous statements, about killing feral pigs. I don't even know what the heck that means. The people down in the middle of Louisiana, they're down there killing feral pigs. I guess it was a meme from 2019, some hypothetical argument that was made on Twitter that I don't quite get. And evidently neither did he, but he thought he was being hip. Thought he was making an argument to keep, assault weapons legal. Maybe he thought there was something between feral pigs and children. I don't know. But this is just, it's crazy. Now, what's angering and frustrating is as you're watching what's happening, there's going to be tons of blame being, it's the police officers now. Immediately it was the cops were heroes. In fact, now the governor of Texas, he's livid. Oh my gosh, livid, because he feels he was misled because the police didn't go in right away. We now know, I guess, waited almost an hour. The shooter was outside the building for 12 minutes shooting outside. Police response time, not great. We now find that, how did the statement go? That the Texas Department of Public Safety said something. They made the wrong decision. No, making the wrong decision is choosing what kind of a plaid shirt with a solid tie or something. That's the wrong decision. The wrong decision is turning on a different street and going a different way. This was not the wrong decision. This was malfeasance. This was just not doing your job. And as someone reached out to me and said, hey, look, anybody checking these police officers' social media for any critical race theory, any white replacement stuff in their social media? I don't know, but seems very bizarre. In watching the statements coming out of the now revised version of what happened, other than now they're heroes, because now they're going to be the scapegoats. Now it's the police's fault. It's not the gun. Remember, it's never going to be the gun. It's never the fault of the gun. Remember, the gun is perfectly innocent. Never mind that. It's everything else. Now remember, watch as this is playing out. Understand, the argument is always going to be, but Rick, if you take the gun away, bad people are still going to do bad things because, he'll go with a knife. So this idea is, since we can't solve all of the problems, since we can't solve every single possible problem, we can't do everything, then, we can't do anything. So if you can't do it all, clearly can't do anything. And look, I'm not saying we can solve every possible thing. And I'm not even saying we could have stopped this. What I am saying, you cut down on a number of these weapons that are made for killing, and that's what they are. These are made for mass murder. That's what they're made for. And they're made to do maximum damage. Those cops knew this shooter had a gun they get hit, they're done. He didn't have a little Saturday night special. He didn't have a little pea shooter. Had a weapon made for murder. Had a weapon that where you get shot, you're done. They knew that. They were outgunned. Which is why they didn't race in there. I'm arguing you you limit the ability to get those kind of weapons, maybe you stand a chance. Maybe if they had the old 6 shooters, because maybe most of those kids had a chance. I'm saying that maybe you can limit the severity of some of this stuff. But no, we can't talk about that because you didn't stop it. And the thing that gets me is when you talk about individual things like background checks. I've yet to find anybody who goes, no, we really shouldn't have background checks because we want everybody. We want people with we want everybody to have guns. I've yet to find anybody who's really against background checks. In fact, like 90% of the country is in favor of background checks. And you go, well, why politically don't we have it? Well, we don't have it because the NRA said, no, bad. Slippery slope. If we start there, before you know it, red flag laws. There's a great story over at ProPublica about a Colorado representative who proposed a red flag law and got drummed out, just railroaded out because this is the beginning of the slippery slope. And you go, no, this is common sense. Why can't we talk common sense? This is the problem that I have of where we are. And look, we're going to find a whole bunch of new boogeymen. There are going to be a whole bunch of more people to hate. The right wing is going to have a new person to be angry with. So Colin Kaepernick, you're going to have a roommate, and that new roommate is going to be San Francisco Giants manager Gabe Kapler. Because Gabe Kapler this evening said, you know what? We're not coming out of the dugout for the national anthem. When the Giants played the Reds, not doing it, not coming out of the dugout. He said, not doing it until I feel better about the direction of the country. He said, I don't believe it is representing us well right now. And he said, every time I place my hand over my heart and remove my hat, I'm participating in a self-congratulatory glorification of the only country where these mass shootings take place. So the right, this is now going to be this is the enemy. So get ready for the F channel to lose their mind. Baseball is against America. Get ready for it. Just preparing you. Because, well, Gabe Kapler and, the other day, Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, said, this is enough. When do we stop? And look, the kind of protests we've seen aren't going to work because our politicians aren't afraid of us. The only thing that they're afraid of is the money being cut off. And this is where we need major reform of our political system. We need to get the money out of our politics. And this is where we have to start voting these bums out. When 90% believe we should have background checks and we don't have it, that should tell you our system is broken. Or we're full of it. Or we're liars. I mean, I think that's part of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. How are you feeling about this? What are your thoughts on where we are in this moment? Is it we're not going to see anything happen because, well, we can't solve all the world's problems here? Or is Joe Manchin right? Is this time, this 119th time, is this different? Is this time going to be different? Are there 80 senators that are going to pass sensible background checks? Something? Your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Back after this.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
It takes a lot to raise a family. A good job, a good salary, and some patience. A lot of people my age are drowning in college debt. But I chose a different path. I'm a member of the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I work hard for my job, and I love what I do. I had a lot of choices for my future, but I made the best choice for my family. IBEW, the right choice.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads. But I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage was real difficult to make a living. And the Teamsters pushed a lot so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind, the union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case, and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You want to weigh in on the gun issue. Look, at the end of this, I keep coming back to that. When you start talking about the common sense reforms that we need, universal background checks, red flag laws, limiting who can get what, do we need 100-round magazines and these weapons that were made for war? Look, I've shot them. They're fun. They're fun. They are. But when you look at the reality, is my right to have a little fun? Just a little fun. I'm a law-abiding citizen. We can put up with these, 119 minor little tragedies every once in a while. I'm curious your thoughts. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line 1. Alice, how are you?
I'm doing well. Well, here's the thing. Those of us who are sensible realize that no one needs one of these assault weapons, but someone that's in law enforcement or the armed forces. And obviously, this exceptionalistic people in Texas just doesn't apply, because from what I can figure out after they've changed the story 37 times, is you have a whole bunch of cops standing around the building while the shooter is in there shooting kids because they're afraid that they're going to get shot. And why no one called out the SWAT team, because they do have one, unless they were afraid that the SWAT team was going to get shot. And the only thing that they were doing was waiting on the Border Patrol to show up and keeping the parents from going in. This doesn't make any sense to me, because I thought the whole idea of having a police force was to defend and protect. And what happened to if you have a gun, you can save someone? Because obviously they weren't too worried about it.
Yeah, where's the good guy with the gun? Yeah,
standing outside the building.
Yeah,
that's where they were. But yes, I think most of us that are sensible don't believe that these guns should be on the street. So you have a good evening.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. No, this idea that do guns make us safer? And the answer is no. The studies are there. They don't make us safer. It's just that simple. Let's go to line 2. We got Benny on line 2 from Illinois. Hey, Billy, Benny, how we doing?
I'm good, Rick. How are you?
Not too bad. What's on your mind, brother?
Not too much, but just every time these gun debates get brought up, I keep trying to wrap my head around the argument of needing these for a tyrannical government, and I just try to wrap my mind around how that would look. Like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
ever
No,
think about-
my friend Steve Hostetter, the fabulous comedian, does a beautiful bit on this, where he goes, if you're thinking that you're going to take on the federal government and in the military, I don't think you know how tanks work. Because
Well, yeah, I mean, oh, go on, sorry.
no, because they have war machines. Because this is where my argument comes into. Everybody believes in gun control. It's just a matter of where we draw the line. I've yet to find anyone who thinks that I should have a thermonuclear weapon at my disposal. I've yet to find anybody who thinks I should have a stealth bomber at my disposal. We all believe in it. It's just a matter of where we draw that line. And some of us want that line a little bit saner towards safety and security.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just wonder, like, if something like this does go down, I mean, me as someone who currently doesn't own a gun, do I get issued a weapon by J.B. Pritzker if, like, this devolves into some kind of civil war? Like, how? I don't know. Just madness.
No, but here's the thing, Benny, and this is where sadly there's some that I've met over the years who do believe that it's going to devolve into a civil war, and they've got arsenals that they've been stockpiling, and there are some who have fetishized the idea of the next civil war. And the left, they haven't internalized this. And right now, this is where the governor of Texas had said, in a tweet not too long ago, that California, the people of California were buying guns at a much faster rate than the people of Texas, and that he was upset about that because liberals are starting to look around and they're looking at how outgunned they are, and the kind of rhetoric coming from the militia crowds, and they're starting to go, maybe we do need to start arming ourselves, which is in the worst part of where we can go, I think.
Oh, totally. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. I always wonder about this stuff whenever this gets brought up.
Appreciate the call, man. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Good stuff. No, I mean, this is one of those things, and it devolves into this horrible place of now everyone's got to have a gun. Look, I've lived in horrible places. I've never felt the need to have to be always holding a gun to feel safe. And that's, I guess I've been fortunate in that world. But we're in this second that you just got so much that at some point we've got to have the sane and the rational speak up. And this is where getting out into the streets and pushing back has to happen. And you're seeing like students in San Diego, for instance, walked out of the classroom saying, you know what, we're not taking this. You got to do something. You got to speak up. You've got to do something in this moment. And this is that simple. It really is that simple for me. We got Julie from Minnesota on line 1. Julie, how are we doing today?
Hi, I'm sick to my stomach, like everyone else. I like the idea of gun insurance because I got to have insurance for my car, don't I?
Yep.
To me, that's a common sense. It's just one thing. It's not going to save the world. But to me, that's a common sense something. I don't know if we could get the Republicans to agree to that. What do you think? But that's one of my little ideas.
No, I'm all in favor of it. I mean, look, I'm not a gun grabber, but I do believe that you have to have some responsibility. And this is where the Republican Party had been at one point, Julie. They were the party of personal responsibility. In fact, they used to preach it. They used to preach accountability and responsibility. That was them for a while. Now it's the Wild West. And nobody's responsible or accountable to anyone, especially when you're talking about guns. I love the idea of making guns like a car. You got to register it. You got to be trained. You've got to prove proficiency, and you've got to be insured. I love that idea because, again, our Second Amendment, I believe, is not wide open. It's not the Wild West. A well-regulated militia. Those words are there for a reason. Well-regulated, kind of important. Kind of something that the founding fathers thought, I don't know, maybe we should think about. But love to hear more of your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Got a lot more to get to. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. You miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast over at thericksmithshow.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1943. That was the day 50,000 striking rubber workers ended their 5-day walkout in Akron, Ohio. It was World War II, and the no-strike pledge was in full effect. Bosses were awash in defense contract profits. At the same time, they used the no-strike pledge to violate collective bargaining agreements, crank up assembly line production, and ignore grievances. As one sympathetic headline read, workers forced to strike in defense of their living standards, slashed by soaring prices, taxes, and anti-union profiteers. Workers at Goodyear, Firestone, and Goodrich had petitioned the War Labor Board for an 8-cent raise and shift differentials that they were entitled to per the Little Steel formula. For a year, they waited patiently and were outraged when they learned the board had only granted a 3-cent raise. Firestone and Goodrich workers threw down their tools immediately and poured out of the factories. Goodyear workers soon followed. In a protest telegram to the board, United Rubber Workers leaders pointed out that living costs had increased by 23% since January 1941. They also noted that essential to maintaining the no-strike agreement was a just settlement of grievances and a $25,000 cap on executive salaries, neither of which had been adhered to. The walkout was one of the first major challenges to the no-strike pledge. Women took the lead as picket captains and dispatchers. Their leadership was accepted without question. Flying pickets cruised the city to enforce picket lines. Black workers at Firestone, impressed by the union's fight for equal rights, figured prominently in the strike. Workers returned to the job with their spirits high, having forced the board to reconsider their demands. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Over 70 years of experience in heart and aviation, the members of the Association of Flight Attendants know the realities of the aircraft cabin better than anyone. We don't just serve drinks, we save lives. We don't just negotiate contracts, we move major policy issues like the smoking ban, no knives on planes, clean water, and safe food on board. The air we breathe matters, and we stop the spraying of poisonous pesticides. Training, rest, and no calls on planes matter as we fight fires, de-escalate conflict, revive, and breathe life. We safely usher passengers to the big business deal, the family vacation, the times of celebration, times of grief, and times of battle. We are aviation's first responders, and we are the last line of defense in aviation security. We are the first impression and the smile of aviation, connecting the people of our nations. Fly with us, partner with us, make progress with us. The Association of Flight Attendants. Stronger together, better together.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, kind of where we started, I'm still surprised watching the Republicans, do the, we've got the press releases, we've got them all ready. It's like carbon copies of the last tragedy. Interestingly, though, the governor of Texas, now he was misled about the police response. Misled, given bad information, and this is how I find it always interesting that our Republican friends always default to, our law enforcement people they're the courageous ones. No, they prected their kids. They protected themselves. This is where, again, they're smart. They were outgunned. Kind of thinking about, again, it's the guns. Crazy. But again, you look at what's going on, and they are so hell-bent on not talking about what the real issue is about, all about deflection. I'm here to share some thoughts on the gun issue. I've asked Brett Pransky to come talk with us. Brett is our executive producer, but also does some incredible writing over at the Courier News, where he's a political analyst and writer. He's got a piece out on Susan Wild, the U.S. representative here in Pennsylvania, who's a couple hours after the shooting. She's in a room full of constituents talking about what happened. Her opponent, not so much. Brett, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, am I getting this right? Susan Wild, who had a town hall scheduled, walked in, took on the issue head first, and as you write in your article, it would take another 17 hours before her opponent released her statement.
Yeah, when tragedies like this happen, I like to look around at kind of how different people handle it, how they handle themselves, how they handle, contact with the public. And, it's notable to see a representative, any representative, walk into a previously scheduled town hall event where there's only going to be one subject, when whatever the previous agenda was going to be entirely hijacked by the news of the day. And yet they go in, they take it on, head on, talk to people, listen to the stories, deal with the emotion. It was quite the event. She live streamed it on her Facebook page and on YouTube, and people were upset, and visibly upset. And just seeing how people handle it and then how other people choose not to handle it is, it's a notable thing that I thought deserved a little time.
Now, the other side, I mean, you look at all of the Republican candidates and all of the politicians out there. It's all about deflecting away from what is the real issue, and that is our political system's broken, and we're clearly not going to do anything on the gun issue. But it is about that diversion. It is about that deflection.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why you get this kind of boilerplate language that is usually released through social media. Very few times will people step up to a microphone, except for a few people who seem to move towards it. The Ted Cruzes of the world will move towards the microphone because they think it's something that actually helps them, which, is we saw how that turned out. When he was asked a couple of actual real pointed questions, he immediately just bolted out of the room, pitched a little fit and ran off and so on, which is what happens usually when he's challenged by someone who knows what they're doing. But yeah, these responses are becoming ridiculous to the point where it's obvious that there are people out there who simply don't care, but they're not willing to say that, so they keep giving us this thoughts and prayers language over and over and over again. And again, that's what Susan Wild's opponent did. Actually, she waited till the next morning. She had nothing to say on the day of, and then I think it was like 9 or 9:25 the next morning, she released like a 33 word statement, with literally the boilerplate language, the thoughts and prayers language that we all know is coming. And for, while I've looked around a little bit, I don't think she said anything since.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Now you bring up Ted Cruz, and Cruz defaulted to jingoism. I mean, his official statement in the interview with Sky News that I think you were referring to is, because he was asked, why are these gun shootings? Why are these, children being massacred? Why is this an American problem? Why is this American exceptionalism? Why is this? And he took offense to it and defaulted to, why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth. He said, stop being a propagandist. And yet that statement, propaganda, because we're not the freest, we're not the most prosperous, and we're not certainly not the safest country on earth. Although, going back to that, that video clip from the TV show several years back, we used to be, and we should be.
Right. And, for example, one stat that comes to mind when he talks about us being the freest nation on earth is that I believe America has somewhere between 4 and 5% of the world's population, but we have over 25% of the world's prisoners. We lead the world in locking people up. So this idea that we're the freest nation in the world is kind of false on its face. The safest place in the world, that, again, we're the only country who deals with these issues. It's a legitimate question to ask. It's not even a political question. It's a measure of dead bodies. And it's something that any news organization, whether it's in this country or any other country, should be asking is why is it that this only happens here? And it's not that Ted Cruz, doesn't like the question. He doesn't like the fact that there's only one answer to that question, and he can't give it. All right, the answer to the question is we have, a ridiculous number of guns. We have more guns than people. They're easily accessible. And, the NRA, if it had its way, would sell guns in vending machines. I mean, so, and as long as that's the case, as long as they hold the power that they have and nothing is going to change, then Ted Cruz is going to keep dodging that question, because the only real answer to it is an answer he can't give.
Yeah, and in fact, tragically, disgustingly, however you want to put it, today as we speak, the NRA is having their convention in Houston, where Greg Abbott didn't attend, but it's going to send a video message. Donald Trump's spoke. All this stuff is going on like no big deal. They're going to have their gun fetish convention. Their obsession will continue, and again, this issue isn't going to go away. And this is this cycle that continues to happen every time we have one of these shootings. We're outraged, we're angry. There's all this media attention. There's all this outrage, and then there's the thoughts and prayers. There's that. And then you have some outrage on Twitter and social media. We got to do something, and then nothing gets done, and then we kind of let it go for a while until the next time, and this cycle just continues. In fact, 119 times since 2018, and look, predictably, it's going to happen again.
Yeah, it certainly will, and I've seen a lot of people speaking about this issue in the past several days, and the people who really know what they're doing are incredibly frustrated on the air. You can see it coming out because they know it's going to happen again. They know that there very likely won't be action. There's a bill on the Senate floor right now that we could bring up for a vote at any time we want to, that would increase the number of background checks and provide for universal background checks. It's there. It's already passed the House. If it passes the Senate, Joe Biden would sign it, and that would be that. But they won't bring it to a vote. And again, these are even the politicians on our side because they know it's going to fail. All right. And now, when you talk about urgency and, action and what the people, there's a lot of action going on outside the NRA convention where people have shown up by the tens of thousands to protest what's going on in there. And, people like Beto are there, leading and, and saying the right things about asking people to join hands with them, but also telling them at the same time, if you're not going to join hands with us, we will leave you behind, which I think is the right message. You want to reach out to the people who have been resistant to this message in the past, but you also want to let them know that we're going to keep going regardless, which I think is a great message. But everyone I've heard talking about this is so supremely frustrated by it, and most of them are frustrated because, like us and like me, they don't think anything is going to happen. I don't think anything is going to happen too. After all, Congress just went home.
Yeah. No, if history has shown us anything, we know that nothing's going to happen. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Brett Pransky, writer, political analyst over at Courier News. You want to check out their website, couriernewsroom.com. We'll get links out on social media, how you can take a look at the work that they do. But here, you brought up Beto, and Beto had that moment during the press conference where, look, I think his outrage, I think, him confronting him was, well received. I think people are angry. They want to see some action. I'm curious, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I think what most people will think is it's unfortunate, but it's time. Like, I don't think that, that getting disruptive is something that we think is a really good thing in and of itself. But when it's necessary, it's necessary. Personally, I think that, especially Democrats in the House and Senate, we need to understand that our opposition, which we used to refer to as our patriotic opposition and so on, these people are not operating in good faith. And they haven't been operating in good faith for a long time. Yet our representatives are still operating with a level of decorum that I don't think is appropriate to the situation. These are desperate times, and the situation is really bad, and we're still acting as if the same old rules apply, and we're still treating people amicably as if there are our friends and colleagues when in most cases they're really not, or at least they're not behaving as such. I personally think it's time for a pretty significant loss in decorum across the board until we start getting the change we need. Because what happens when we're obeying these rules and the other side doesn't, we just look weak. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we look like the team that won't fight. And again, that's already, kind of an anchor hanging on the Democratic Party in the first place, is that they are weak, that they won't fight, that if there is, I think I've heard on the show a number of times, if there's a street fight, a Democrat will hold your coat. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So if we're not going to win, and if nothing is going to happen, which, is very likely the case, we at least have to put up the fight, and we have to fight as hard as we can. We have to let people know that we are fighting, or they're not going to trust us, come November.
So what is, I keep having people go, well, so what's your answer? What's your solution? So we're going to go grab people's guns. And I'm like, no, we're not grabbing everybody's guns. But I think the ones that seem to keep popping up in the news through when these shootings happen, I think that's something to maybe look at. Maybe I'm not the genius here, but there seems to be a common denominator in all of these things. Maybe that's a place to start looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find a policy that's going to work across the board, especially when the Second Amendment is in place and it's valued the way it is, and in many cases should be. But I can think of 119, 120 times where grabbing a gun would have been a pretty good idea. So the idea is that we want to respect people's rights, but we also need to find a way to get these weapons out of their hands. And then there's also the idea of assault style weapons. Keep in mind, those cops stayed in the hallway for nearly an hour as little kids died. And the reason they did it is because they knew they were outgunned. They knew that, if that was a kid in there with a handgun, or a kid in there with a weapon that wasn't capable of quite the carnage it was capable of, would they have been braver, than waiting for 48 minutes before going in that door? It's very likely they would have been braver had the weapon not been so unbelievably terrible. So the idea that assault weapons may need to go is a pretty good idea too. I mean, it has to do with finding something that the American people can deal with and that the two sides can come together on. But right now, what we're seeing is, at least one side of the argument is we have a situation where the issue is more important than the solution.
Yeah,
being able to shout at people of being gun grabbers is more important than actually saving lives.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the police waiting, because one of the arguments is, well, we just Newt Gingrich was on on the F channel saying, well, we just need to pay those teachers an extra $500 a month, train them to carry the little pea shooters in their desk, because they'll be the ones to take on that shooter, where the police, who are highly trained, didn't. So I'm curious, you as an educator, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea. I mean, for any number of different reasons. But I mean, when it comes to arming teachers, what it really is just a fallback position, so we don't have to do anything about guns. That's essentially what it is. Because keep in mind, who they're talking about arming today, they didn't trust yesterday. There's the same people that were demonizing teachers as groomers and predators and all this kind of nasty kind of anti-education stuff that you've been seeing for months now. The stuff that got Glenn Youngkin, elected in Virginia and has become a part of political campaigning ever since. This idea that, they're indoctrinating your children and things like that. So you know what? If they're going to indoctrinate your children, if they're going to groom your children, let's give them a gun so it becomes that much easier. I mean, this argument doesn't make sense. It's never made sense. It's just a way to not talk about guns. It's just a way to not talk about the real problem, which is the existence of these, high capacity death machines, in our schools and in places that they just should not exist. So again, we're going to go back and forth. Teachers are our heroes. Teachers are the problem. And back and forth, because that's how the game is played. And that's essentially what this is. It's all just, to the people making these arguments, it's all just a big game.
Yeah, and again, it's the diversion to get us away from talking about what the real issue is, and that's the frightening part of this, because we're so easily led astray, aren't we?
Yeah, we really are. I mean, it's not hard to divert our attention. Keep in mind, the people who do this are exceedingly good at it, because at the end of the day, and it's a message I've seen on this show a number of times, what this really is about is creating divisions, is dividing people, especially dividing people who have pretty similar interests. For example, the people sitting in that NRA gun convention and the people outside on the streets protesting probably agree on 98 out of 100 issues in America today. But those two issues are such a big deal. That one issue with guns is such a big issue that you can so easily drive a wedge between them. And so what happens is they never come together. And because they never come together, nothing ever gets done. And by the way, nothing getting done is the goal of the people who are driving this whole thing, which in this case are gun manufacturers. But you can see this model playing out in industry after industry after industry. This is just one of them.
Yeah, and while that happens, we continue to get nothing moving forward. But let me ask you a last line of questioning, because they say, well, we had Herschel Walker rambling on about, I'm still not sure what exactly his point was, something about having a government agent, I think it was a government agency overseeing young men looking at women, looking at social media, looking at, I'm not quite sure, something about disinformation, something about something. Right. But he eventually hit mental illness. And I'm going, well, is that the problem? Well, was this kid crazy? Are these shooters all crazy? Is there something to that? Could you argue that the people sitting in that hall a couple of days after a mass murder happened, could you say that there's some mental illness fetishizing a gun? I'm curious, thoughts?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I'm not a mental health professional, but it doesn't take one to realize that there is a mental health problem or a mental health component in this. I mean, when you look at the profiles of the shooters, they are typically people who, who have a severe amount of desperation in their lives, regardless of the many different ways that it can come out. So yeah, I'm sure that mental health is a part of this. But then again, when you look at all the different factors, there are mental health issues no more in America than in any other country percentage-wise. You know what I mean? There are violent video games in America, but not in a greater percentage than other countries. There are, any number of different violence on TV in America, but not in, dramatically different ways than in other places. There's all kinds of different factors that are pretty much the same between us and a lot of other countries who don't have this problem. The one factor that is of dramatic difference between the United States and the countries that don't have this problem is the number of guns that exist in the culture. That is the one thing that is a vast difference between our culture and all these other cultures that don't have these same problems. So, I mean, it's the easiest thing to land on. We should probably start there.
Yeah, it seems like the lowest common denominator seems like the place to start when you have this conversation, and then it should broaden out to all of the other things, because I think we can have a broader conversation than just one thing. Except the things that they keep trying to say, shiny thing over here, come over here. But if you want to check out the work of Brett Pransky and the good folks over at the Courier Newsroom, we'll get links out at social media, how you can do that, at couriernewsroom.com, the website. We will get links out. But Brett, I appreciate the time. Great work. Keep it up. Look forward to having you back again real soon.
All right, thanks.
Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you've got questions, comments, something on your mind, I want to hear it. Also, if you miss any of our program, podcast always available wherever you get your favorites, from iTunes to iHeart, Podbean, Stitcher, everywhere in between. And if there's a place that you get yours that we're not, tell us, and we'll make sure it's there. Quick break, right back. Stick around.
You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. They are God-denying demons that butcher babies and hate this nation.
There are baby parts, and you don't want to talk about how they're being stored. You don't want to talk about putting them in freezers. You don't want to talk about putting them in Pyrex dishes.
Jesus, God, baby, Lord, Jesus, God, baby. One more time.
America is a Christian nation founded by Christian men, and we intend to keep it that way.
How long until mainstream Christianity is deemed domestic extremism?
Genitals, I don't care if you're black or white, are a third the size they were of a 1960s male.
So if you don't declare your pronouns, maybe you're a domestic extremist too.
3-year-old girls are now having periods. 5-year-old girls are now getting pregnant.
When you go to bed at night, put your head on that soft pillow, you know Oz will be doing exactly what you want him to do if you were there next to him.
I'm Candace Taylor.
My NFTs, they are available on melaniatrump.com. There are pictures and animated videos from our time in the White House.
Are you going to accept the results of this election?
Well, it depends on they're fraud or not.
And how are you going to tell if there's fraud or not?
Because Dominions here.
We have no ability to decertify the election and go back and nullify it. We do not.
You ain't seen the insurrection yet. You keep on pushing our buttons, you low-down sorry compromisers. You God-hating communist America, you'll find out what an insurrection is, because we ain't playing your garbage. We ain't playing your mess. My Bible says that the church of the living God is an institution, that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And the Bible says that we'll take it by force.
Bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
The great MAGA king.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Remember the podcast. Never miss a moment. Make sure you share a comment. Give us a 5-star rating. Could use it. Appreciate it. I go back to this conversation that we should be having. Because my email box is full of right-wing groups saying, no, it's not the gun. No, ignore that. Ignore the big thing. Ignore the elephant in the room. It's all of these other things. It's the door was unlocked, and that's a problem we should be talking about. It's he came from a broken family, and this was one that I was particularly fixed on. He was fatherless, and mother had problems, and he was raised by grandparents, and was a loner, and all kinds of, the profile that they get thrown, that they assume was thrown out, and they're going to find people who say, he was this or he did that, and they do this with all of the shooters. They find a profile that this explains it. This is why, because it fits into their realm of understanding that this must be why this person is crazy. Now, what's interesting to me, and again, I go back to, these are the pro-life folks who tell us that, every sperm is sacred and must be brought to full term. But as soon as they're popped out, as soon as, hey, you're born, you're on your own. I don't see the folks who claim that it's not the guns, it's, I don't see the policy to help rectify that. I don't see the policies to make that kid's life better, or the next kid, or any of the interventions that could happen. But, that's right. Hold on. Wait a second. The people that we want to give guns to, those teachers that we want to give guns to because they're the frontline heroes. No, we can't give them the power and the authority to want to make sure that kids who are struggling get help, either, with mental health, with health care, with food, with a safe home environment. No, we can't do any of that. That would be infringing on parental rights. Oh my goodness. And this is the part that's really just, if it weren't so deadly, it would be comical, because it really is where the Republicans, the hypocrisy is. Because, think about it. I mean, just the glaring part of, we want every child born, but we're not going to do anything to help them. We're going to vote against getting parents the extra $300 a month, or $250. I'm sorry, it wasn't even $300. The extra $250 a month, so that they can make sure they have food at the end of the month. So, and as I said back, when that happened at the beginning of the year, the most cruel part of this is that, and I remember when I was a kid, I didn't know we were poor. I thought everyone lived the way we did. That it was a constant struggle. I thought everybody, their cupboards were bare and the refrigerator was empty at the end of the month. I thought that's how life was. I can't imagine if someone came and said, no, for these 6 months, we're going to make sure you have a little extra resource. So we're going to make those last couple of days of the month much easier. Going to show you a different reality. And then at the end of a couple of months, we're just going to yank it away from you. This is what they do. And I look at how cruel that is. And what's angering is they take these high moral positions. We care about the fetus, and we're pro-life, and we love the police and the children. And yet, when it comes down to the policies, when it comes down to the actions, What do we get? Well, I look at Brett Pransky's piece. You had Susan Wild, the representative in the 7th District in Pennsylvania, who went into that room full of grieving family, of grieving parents across Pennsylvania, of grieving citizens who are looking, hey, could this happen in my area? And she took it head on. And her opponent, well, what was it, almost a whole day before she put out a tweet with, several words. I mean, at some point, do we not hold people accountable? And Republicans, please, take your party back. You weren't always this crazy. You weren't always this heartless. You weren't always this uncaring and irrational. I miss that Republican Party. I miss arguing about policy and initiatives. This is just cruel. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of today's program, make sure you grab the podcast. Always available, always there. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.